This is your first Autodesk Inventor tutorial. So what you guys need to do is look at your desktop, find this orange eye. This orange eye is Autodesk Inventor Professional. Double click it to open and be more time to open it, the faster. Down here in the left-hand corner, you can see that it's still loading, it's still opening, it's still getting ready for you to do your work. Okay, now that we're open, we have all these tools up at the top, and the very first thing I want you guys to do once you have your part open is save your work. Always save your work before you even get started. That way you don't risk a chance of losing it. So click on this orange eye up in the left-hand corner. Go to Save As. Now it's probably going to have you in a different folder where it says Save In. I need you to hit this drop-down arrow under Save In and make sure you're in your user drive. This user drive is yours. It's only yours. Every single one of you has your own user drive. So make sure you click User Drive and just call it Sample Part 1. Okay? Sample Part 1 is fine. If it's in your user drive, you can see it, I can see it. Before you can really use any of these tools, you need to start a sketch. This first button on your ribbon is Create a 2D Sketch. So to create a 2D sketch, we're going to come up here to the ribbon. And by the way, last week when you did 1.5.2 Computer Modeling Fundamentals, you guys should have taken some notes to learn that this up here is called a ribbon. We have several different ribbons. We have a 3D model ribbon, an inspect ribbon, a tools ribbon, manage ribbon, view ribbon. Okay, we have lots of different ribbons that give us lots of different tools. The 3D model ribbon is where we're going to be doing most of our work. Over here, this area is called the browser. Okay, this helps us see the different layers of our project, and you'll see this get bigger as we go. Over here is our view cube. Our view cube helps us turn our prototype around and see different angles of it. And this is our navigation tools. These will help us in just a couple minutes. We'll talk more about these. So up here, your top ribbon, we're going to click on 2D sketch. If you hit the down arrow, you'll see that we can do a 2D sketch or a 3D sketch. We are And if you look up in my sketch ribbon, that rectangle tool is still blue. So that means if I click again, I'm going to keep making rectangles the more I click. I don't really want to do that. So to get rid of my rectangle tool, I use my right-click mouse button. So use your right mouse button, and you get this floating toolbar. These floating tools will let you click OK. Notice how my rectangle is not highlighted anymore, so I'm out of my rectangle tool. I'm going to just undo those 3 rectangles. Okay, see my undo button up here, how it just gets rid of those rectangles? Very helpful. Now, the reason we made this rectangle is so that we can make sure our project is the correct size. And to make it the correct size, remember we took notes last week on dimensioning. Dimension gives us our size. So I'm going to click on my dimensioning tool, and this is super easy. If I hover over the top line of my rectangle, it turns white, so I can click on it, drag my mouse up. You can kind of see it's giving me a dimension in black. If I click my mouse again, it'll say, okay, right now, that line is 1.5 something inches. That's really, really small, 1.5 inches. Let's make our first project as big as a piece of paper. So let's make it about an 8 by 10. So let's do 8 inches across. Click your green check mark. Now when you do that, it looks like the rectangle disappeared, but it didn't. What happened was you were zoomed in so that you could see that 1.5 inch rectangle, and we made an 8-inch rectangle, so we need to zoom out. Over here on your navigation bar, we are going to click on this magnifying glass, and what it does is it kind of recenters my page. So now I can see my 8-inch rectangle, and I want to make the height over here. I'm going to click on this. Right now it's only 4.9 inches. Let's go ahead and make it 10. So if we make an 8 by 10 rectangle, click your magnifying glass again so that you can zoom out and see your whole rectangle. If we make an 8 by 10 rectangle, that's just a little bit smaller than a piece of paper. So when we go to print this, everything should print just great. Now the first tool we want to learn how to use, besides rectangle and dimension, oh wait, look, my dimension tool is still highlighted. How do I get out of a highlighted tool? Right click. Okay. Excellent. So now we've learned how to make a rectangle and how to dimension it. To save our work, just come up here and click on your disk, and it'll tell you you cannot save part 1 in sketch mode. Would you like to exit sketch mode and continue saving? Every time you get a little bit of work done, save your work. The more often you save it, the better, because if you need help in the future, that's going to be easier for me to help you if your work is saved. So click OK. It'll automatically take us out of sketch mode. And if you hit your magnifying glass again, don't freak out. There's your rectangle. Everything's fine. Click on Save up here at the top. Sorry, I didn't do that. Click on your little disk to save it, because we already did the Save As. So now all we need to do is click on the disk. Now our work is saved. Now if you notice, we're in our 3D modeling ribbon again. Our sketch ribbon is not up here. To get our sketch ribbon back, don't make a new sketch. We already have a sketch started. So if you make a new sketch, what that's going to do, it's going to be like laying a piece of paper on top of the piece of paper we already have. So we don't want to layer sheets of paper. We want to go back onto that first sketch piece of paper that we had. So over here in the browser where it says sketch 1, see how my rectangle over here turns white when I click on sketch 1? Double click sketch 1 and it will take you back into that sketch. Now we have our sketch ribbon with all of our drawing tools up at the top, and we're in the same sketch, so I can make my changes now. Let's learn how to use a line tool. Click on line. Notice I have my little plus sign with that yellow dot, and I can click and click and click, and I keep making lines. See how they're all connected? That's going to happen. Your line tools are going to stay connected when I'm done with my line tool. The same way when I was done with my rectangle tool, I'm going to right click and hit OK. Now that looks kind of like a lightning bolt, so let's go ahead and make it a lightning bolt. Let's get our line tool back, and the yellow dot that's underneath my plus sign, my mouse cursor, if I want to connect two lines, I need to line them up until that yellow dot turns green. So I'm going to come over here to the top of my soon-to-be lightning bolt. You see how my yellow dot is turning green when I'm matched up? My yellow dot is turning green when I'm matched up, so that means that these lines are going to be connected now. If you can see that, my line is now connected to that one, which is exactly what I want for my lightning bolt. So I'm going to come down here, click, click, and now I'm going to connect it down here at the bottom, so I'm going to wait for my yellow dot to turn green. There it is. Click it again, and then right click, okay. So I've got a decent looking lightning bolt there. I'm sure yours will look better than mine. And if your sketch is different than mine, that's completely fine. Your sketch does not need to be exactly the same as mine. It just needs to be close. So make sure you have a rectangle, make sure you dimension it to be 8 by 10, and then make some lines in there. If it doesn't look exactly like a rectangle, or I'm sorry, if it doesn't look exactly like a lightning bolt, that's okay. Let's try another tool. Let's try our circle tool. This tool is also really easy. Click on our circle tool. I have my little cross mouse cursor with the yellow dot under it, and I'm going to click and pull my mouse out and click. That's how easy it is to make a circle. Let's make another one. Click, drag your mouse out, and click. There's 2 circles. Right click, okay. Now I'm done with my circle tool. So we've got our 8 by 10 rectangle. We've got a nice little lightning bolt that we made with lines. We've got 2 circles that we made with our circle tool. We already know how to make a rectangle, but let's make another one just for kicks. Let's make another rectangle. Let's make them long and skinny. All right, there's our rectangle. Let's right click, okay. My computer's thinking. If your computer ever starts thinking, don't click anything. Just be patient. Let it think. All right, so my computer's done thinking. Right now, I'm just practicing using some of these tools. So we aren't really making anything super awesome right now. You guys will get to your projects in a couple days, and they will be awesome. Right now, we're just learning how to use some of these tools. So I'm still in my rectangle tool. It's still highlighted. So I'm going to right click and click OK to get out of my rectangle tool. There's a couple more things we want to learn how to do right now. Let's learn how to fillet these edges. Let's say we want to make our rectangle have some curved edges. What I'm going to do to help me see that, I'm going to zoom in. On your mouse, do you see that red little rolling ball on the top of your mouse? If you roll it towards you, that's going to pull the paper closer to you so you can zoom in. If you roll that red ball away from you, you'll zoom out. And you can zoom out a lot. Look how small we can make that. We can make it even smaller, smaller, smaller. We can also zoom in a lot. You can really do super zoom and super, like, this program's really awesome. You can make stuff really huge or really tiny. I also want to show you this hand over here on our navigation bar. If I click on this hand lets me kind of move my paper around and recenter it. Now, if you can see my mouse still looks like a hand, so I need to right click OK to be done with that. The magnifying glass will recenter my page and zoom in on my drawing, but my hand will let me slide it wherever I want to. So right click, OK. So I'm going to zoom in on the rectangle again. Now if I want to make those edges rounded, I can use my fillet tool right up here. Do you guys see my fillet tool? Fillet, and if you hover over it, it tells you it turns a square edge into a rounded edge. So I'm going to click on my fillet tool, and you click the 2 sides that make your corner, the 2 sides that make your vertex. So click, click, and it fillets them. See how my get rid of part of a shape, all I need to do is make a line to cut it off. And then right here where you see the scissors, this tool is called trim. So these scissors will trim off any part of a shape that's cut off by a line. So I'm going to click on my trim tool, and I can see how that half of my circle turns dotted. So I can click on it, and it cuts it off. So that's a really nice tool to know how to use, guys. You're really going to need to use that trim tool, so pay attention to that. If you need to rewind and rewatch that, rewind and rewatch that. Let's trim off the rest of this line. So what it'll do is it'll only trim up to where the circle is. Watch. Trim. See how nice this is? It's a really good way to kind of clean up your drawing and make changes as you go. Now I'm still in my trim tool, so I'm going to right click, OK, and I'm going to hit my magnifying glass to zoom out. So I've got my rectangle. It's dimensioned to be 8 by 10. I use my lines to make a lightning bolt. Remember, when you connect lines, the dot turns green. I made a couple circles with my circle tool. I made a rectangle. I filleted the edges to make them nice and rounded. And then I made a line through the middle of my circle, and I used my trim tool to cut off half of the circle, and now we only have a half a circle left. So we're learning a whole lot right here. If you guys ever need to pause, rewind, rewatch this, feel free to do that. This video is always going to be in the TTT folder for you to watch. Okay, 2 more tools. Our polygon tool is really fun. We can make a polygon with any number of shapes we want. With this spline tool right here. Spline actually has 2 kinds. We have a spline that says control vertex. You guys see that first one that says control vertex? That control vertex spline is really hard to use. It uses reference points off the curve to tell the curve where to go. It's really tricky. This spline that says interpolation, does everybody see this interpolation spline? It's way easier to use. So I want you to click on the spline interpolation and make sure these white dots are actually on the curve. If I click on spline control vertex, see how the white dots are on the top and bottom? They're not really on the curve. That's going to make your life harder. So click on spline interpolation where all the dots are on the curve. And now we can make our S. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see it better. And I'm going to start my curve. Click. I want it to curve up here to make the S. Click and click again. When I'm done with the curve, I'm going to click the green check mark. It says OK. That's the first half of my S. You guys are going to have to play with this tool. It really just takes a while to get used to. I'm going to use my hand to move this piece of paper up. Right click OK to be done with the hand. Now this spline tool really does just take a while to get used to. So if you make your first spline and you don't like it, just hit undo and redo it and play with it for a little bit. If you need to pause the video to play with the spline, go ahead and do that. I'm going to click back on the spline to make the rest of my S. Now how do I know if they're connected? My yellow dot's going to turn green. Watch. There it is. There's my green dot. So I can click, bring my S over here because I want it to curve down, right? And click. get my green check mark. So there's my Superman S. I'm going to use my magnifying glass to zoom out. So one more time, we made a rectangle. We dimensioned it to be 8 by 10. We used our line tool to make a lightning bolt, and we made sure they were connected by using our green dots. And if I click on this lightning bolt and try to pull it around, because they're connected, they're going to stay connected if I pull them around now. So you can kind of make things look different even after they're built by just clicking on them and dragging them around. Same thing with my circles. If I want to make this half a circle look different, I can pull that around. Okay, with this circle, if I wanted to move it, I would click on the center, and I can move this circle around, right? Rectangle, I can move this line, make it bigger, shrink it down, make it smaller, okay? I can pull it out and make it longer. I can shrink it in, make it shorter. Play with this kind of stuff a little bit so you get used to it. If I want to move my pentagon, there we go. All right, if I want to move my S, make my S a little different, okay? You just need to click on something and drag your mouse around, and it will change for you. So we're going to save this one more time. Click on your mouse, save it. Can't save in sketch mode, so click OK. All right, now everything's saved. Now to print it, we're going to go back into sketch mode. You're going to go to the eye. You're going to go to, sorry, my thing's in the way. Click on your eye. Go to print. Make sure you print to HP 4250. All right, if you don't print to the 4250, it's not going to work. Click OK. And you'll have a nice printout of your work that you can keep in your folder until we're ready to turn that in. That's your first Inventor tutorial video. Good job.